because wonderful, wonderful messages of prosperity come from the prosperity lady. Would you welcome Reverend Ros Goldsbrough from New Zealand, and who's running our wonderful Unity National School. Welcome to Melbourne.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Yeah, and absolutely both those songs and all those graphics, beautiful, beautiful graphics, just put us right in that frame of mind, I think, of knowing, yeah, there is no limit. There is, if we believe it, we can see it, we can achieve it. And it's so relevant, isn't it? Because, you know, there are those times, and I don't know whether you've heard people say, oh, it must have been God's will. You know, something didn't work out right. Oh, it must have been God's will. And I'm thinking, how can that be God's will? As if God is some capricious being that will impose some punishment on us. And it's not that at all, is it? Because God is principle. And it's grasping that whole concept of, so principle, can principle have a will? You think about maths, you know, do a mathematical problem. If it goes wrong, we don't go, oh, that was maths will, you know, do we? We go, oh, we must have made a mistake somewhere. We must have done something wrong in the way that we were putting that problem together. And so we go back and we go through the process to get it right. So God as principle is the same thing for us. We look at what is the process that we need to be putting in place to make sure that, in fact, we are living God's will. So the process, you know, we've been told through Unity, through Charles Fillmore's teachings, it's mind, idea, expression, the three parts of it, that we have to, first of all, know that in our mind is the great expression that's waiting to come forth. And we bring it forth by tuning into an idea of our greatest good. And then, like the song that Karen Drucker was just singing, we say yes to that and we bring it forth into expression. So the phrase that I've really liked that we can use for this process is thy will. So that's capital W-I-L-L, thy will, not my will be done, thy will be done. Because when we align ourselves with the principle of good, which is another synonym for God, isn't it? Benevolence is another one, light, love, any of the 12 powers we can think of. These are, if we align ourselves with those words, with those ideas, then only good can come into our lives. If something that's not good is coming into our life, that's not God's will then. We have to then go, oh, okay, so I've maybe been holding some idea that I can't have everything that I would desire to have. I can't have a good life. Because this will that we're talking about here, it's not the will, as Eric Butterworth said, it's not the will of gritted teeth, you know, I have to make this happen. How do I make this happen? It's not that kind of will, but a willingness, as he says, that gives way to the spiritual process. A willingness that gives way. It's not the will of gritted teeth, but the energy of complete participation in the creative process. We think about the talk that Grace gave, I think to you a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? Surrender to success, surrender to success. And as she, you know, walked us through what that word of surrender, that, you know, you're going up, you're lifting your consciousness up to a level of the ultimate, absolute goodness, the absolute, rather than the limited expression that we sometimes are hanging on to. Think about the color, the will. In the 12 powers, we call it, we talk about it with the color of silver. And the reason for that is that we think about will as the reflection of understanding, and understanding is gold. It's like the sun and the moon, right? The moon is the reflection of the sun. So the golden rays of the sun reflect onto this other orb, and so we get this beautiful silver light in the sky. So the same with this. Understanding, we need to have that basis of understanding, this golden understanding that whatever we can see in our mind's eye already exists in one form or the other. And we use that power of faith, which we were singing about just before, to bring it into manifestation. So our will then is a reflection of that. So it's our possibility, it's our potentiality, if you like, to choose willingness over willfulness. If any of you had an experience of willfulness, you know, that stubborn, intractable state of mind, this was a real challenge for me. And it's why I didn't survive long in teaching, I can tell you, because I had no idea how to be willing, how to set boundaries or anything like that. And so I had kids jumping out of windows and chaos all over the place. It wasn't until I had my own child and I was confronted with what I considered willfulness, a child who wouldn't put her clothes on, you know, so I'd be struggling to get her dressed. And it took me a long time before it was like, oh, is there another way of doing this? Well, yes, there is. So it's a matter of not my will, but thy will. So lifting up to a higher consciousness so that the good that I wanted would come about in that automatic process rather than I will make this happen way. So think about that whenever you've got something that you really want to see come into your life. And maybe you're feeling like, well, you know, how do I make this happen? And we're told by prosperity teachers like Edwin Gaines, the how is none of our business. The how is none of our business. Our business is to be able to see the good, to hold it in our mind's eye, to have that absolute firm understanding that if we can see it, we can achieve it. We can see it, and we put in there, of course, and believe it. So those three, if I can conceive of the idea, if I can see it, I can believe it, then I can achieve it. Charles Fillmore writes that this sin and sickness and suffering and death that we experience, he says that men experience, I guess that's all of us, are not punishment willed by God. They are the result of broken law. So we think about God as law. That was one of the questions that we were always asked in our licensed Unity teacher training is, so what is God? We had to be able to recite back, well, God is law. To get out of our minds, and I don't know whether it was ever in your mind, but certainly, you know, in my mind, there was always this thought, well, no, isn't God a being, you know, looking down at me, judging me? So it was a process of going, so God is law, God is principle. And for me, it was, I had to wrap my head around that. So what does that mean? Some of the language, of course, that we still use makes it sound like that God's somehow out there. But we know in the teachings that we have, and thank goodness that we have this opportunity to get together regularly so that we can kind of go bounce these ideas off one another and go, so if in fact this is law that we're working with, there must be an absolute way that we can put it into place, that it's not random. It's like nature, is it? It's not random, is it? We look at, you plant a seed, you plant a seed to grow carrots. They don't suddenly turn into potatoes. There's an orderliness to it. And so it is with the way that this works. When we're activating our will, when we're activating it according to law, then we're activating it from the place of that it's God's will, not our will. We're choosing a willingness rather than a willfulness, a willingness which is going, I am willing to listen to the inner nudges. I'm willing to listen to my inner wisdom. You know how all these 12 powers come and they kind of link up together. I'm willing to listen and take action from that. Yes, how is none of our business when we're working towards a goal. What is our business is to listen to an idea, a nudge. So often we're still trying to plan something out there. No, I've got to do this and do that. What if it's easy? What if this whole thing is supposed to be an easy journey? Oh, I want to be in vibrant health. Does it mean I have to then do all these things? Or maybe it's just an ease of going, oh, I can see in my mind's eye what that looks like. I can still climb stairs. I can still do the things that I love to do. I can see it. Therefore, there must be a way to achieve it. And then if I sit with that, I get an idea. Oh, yeah, it'd be good if I do yoga twice a week. So that's what I do. It'd be good if I do some vigorous exercise once a week. So that's what I do. For other people, it might be different things. Sometimes it's maybe resting more. We listen to the inner nudges. So we think about how we use this will of ours, because it is it's one of our powers. It's one of our 12 powers, the ability to choose willingness over willfulness. See, on one end of the scale, if we're underdeveloped in this area, then we might be very indecisive, irresolute. We can't make a decision. Do you ever go out to a restaurant and you're looking at the menu and go, oh, I don't know what to choose. Oh. And then you see whoever you're with, they've chosen something. Oh, yeah, I think I'll have that too. So, and, in those situations, they're not a big issue. But think about it in your life. Are the times when you are going, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to choose here. Because we need to be in that place of, okay, so then use the phrase, thy will, not my will, be done. And spend a bit of time just waiting, listening. Do you get a nudge? Do you get something that says, oh, you should do this? So then do it. Sometimes we think, oh, but I don't see the significance of that nudge. If you've got the nudge, it's important. That's how Spirit talks to us, isn't it? It's not with a big, loud, booming voice. It'll be something that suddenly is a thought, or you've picked up a book and you open and you go, oh, look at that. Of course, there's the other end of will, which is the stubborn, pig-headed end of it. They're going, oh, I'm not going to do that. I think some of the times when John and I are having a moment, I can feel that stubbornness in me. I had an interesting exchange with a friend the other day, and she lives on her son's property, so they've built her a little. I suppose you could call it a granny flat. It's much more than a granny flat because it's got her studio in it, and it's a lovely home on her son's property. But her son has, with his new wife, has decided that they want to go and build elsewhere. So this has been going on for, a few years. And recently he came down to her house and said, so we really are going to be moving. So you will need to move. And she goes, I will not. Just felt that, that complete stubbornness. I will not move. And what was interesting? She said, I was constipated for the next 2 days. Now, do you think that was a coincidence? Mm-mm. Those stubborn, resistant states of mind have a direct result, have a direct effect on our bodies. Charles Fillmore writes about those stubborn, resistant states of mind as possibly hardening the heart. Wow, that's a thought, isn't it? Could that be where some heart attacks come from? That resistant, stubborn thinking. That gives pause for thought. For me, that gives me moments to think, oh, maybe I could be a bit more willing here rather than resisting. Thy will, not my will, be done. Thy will, not my will. So we're lifting up our consciousness to a level of saying, if there's good that I want, then I can align myself with that. Align myself with seeing that good being able to come into my life. But I don't have to force it. I don't have to make it happen. It's not that grim determination. It's a willingness to move towards the good, to move towards God, basically. So it's our great permission giver, our will. It's the way that we can choose the good that we want to see come into our lives. Thy will be done. Let me read to you just a little bit from what Charles Fillmore wrote about this, and then we'll take it into a time of meditation. He says, stubborn, willful, resistant states of mind congest the life flow. They're followed by cramps and congestion. The will often compels the use of the various organs of the body beyond their normal capacity. And the results are found in strained nerves and strained muscles, and in impaired sight and impaired hearing. Disobedient children have earache. Wow, my daughter had lots of earache, showing the direct result that self-will has on the nerves of the ear. Deaf persons should be treated for freedom from willfulness and obstinacy. In the present state of race consciousness, all people use the intellectual will to excess. The remedy is daily relaxation, meditation, prayer. So let's take this idea of thy will, not my will, be done into a time of meditation. I invite you just to take a deep breath, to relax, to allow yourself just to be supported by the chair that you're in or wherever you are right at this moment. And just say to yourself quietly, I choose willingness over willfulness. Thy will, not my will, be done. I allow myself to relax, to let go, to be in the flow, in the creative flow. I choose willingness over willfulness. I listen for an idea, a nudge, an intuitive hit. I release any need to be right. I release any need to resist. I choose willingness. And I take a deep breath in and release it. It's a big sigh. Thy will, not my will, be done. And so it is. Amen.
Thank you, Ros. Let's just keep that wonderful feeling. Keep it going as we have a song.